Hello, I'm Simon Calder. Welcome to today's Back to the City. I have Cody Steinmann with me. Welcome, Cody.
Thank you for having me today, Simon.
You're very welcome indeed. I'm excited about the new collection of singles that you're rolling out. For some time, I've been enjoying Not Sappy at All.
Yeah.
And ahead of the interview, I've been listening to all of the singles. So
Yeah.
we'll talk a little bit about the collection, but primarily Outliers, which you're on the cusp of releasing.
Yes.
Well, I'll also highlight that there is artwork
Yes.
that goes with each of these.
Yes.
And so this, editing me, will have a nicer impose, a nice one with that creases on it. But yeah, here we go. This is the artwork that goes with the first single,
Yes.
which we can also hear right now. We can hear right now, courtesy of editing me. So as we hear this, could you just say a little bit about the relationship between this image and the music, this song that we can presently hear?
Yeah, man. Well, first off, I gotta give Jamie Brevik, the person who made the art, a lot of praise for doing such a good job. Jamie Brevik's a world-class trumpet player from Milwaukee, and he does a lot of artwork for a lot of very big-name jazz musicians. And I feel he did I've known him basically since I started cutting my teeth doing this. And I feel he did a really, really great job of putting into visual art the vibe and the aesthetic and the message I was trying to give with the music.
Case, with each song.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel he just did such an awesome job, and I'm really, really happy to have worked with him.
Could you expand a bit more about how that collaboration came to be and just practically how it worked? So did all of the songs exist and then you shared them with him and encouraged him to come up with artwork that visually related to each of the songs? Is that accurate?
It's exactly accurate. It's exactly how it went. So we recorded all the music in front of a live studio audience at Legacy Building in South Minneapolis. It's a spot owned by all the cats from the group Illism, who happen to be good friends of mine. And it was all done in one take. Everything's one take, perfectly through. That's what it is. There's no overdubs. There's no. I mean, I'll let this much out. The only one we did multiple takes of was Not Sappy at all.
Right.
We only did 3.
And
I will be releasing the first 2.
Yes,
you've already got the first one, and I just kind of dropped that I'll be releasing a second take of it at some point. So
with its own artwork.
With its own artwork.
Yeah.
So now you kind of know what 3 of the singles are gonna be.
Right.
Got 3 more that I'm not gonna be that easy to give away.
No spoilers. I'll be careful not to name any of them.
But so yeah, I had sent him all the music after it was mastered, and again, I gotta give another shout out. Jason McClone at Hideaway Studios. He's worked with Stokely, worked with a bunch of other really, really heavy cats. Just did such an amazing job of mixing and mastering everything. So yeah, when Jamie was listening, when Jamie was working on the art, I asked him to listen to each song, and I gave him a little bit of background in some cases about what the music was about.
Yeah. Can you remember, did you give him any for Not Sappy at all?
Yeah, I did. So some of this music that I'm doing with the trio was actually written way before I had written any of the stuff for Code 7 or any of the stuff for Sightless Quartet, any of the ventures that people would mostly associate with me.
Yeah, Code 7, which has some rapping on it.
Yes.
Could you just briefly kind of, in your own words, describe what Code 7 is to just for context.
Code 7 is my alter ego, my producer name. It's the name that I do any sort of production and hip hop work under. So this stuff was all stuff that I had, some of it, not all of it. Some of it I wrote recently, very recently. But some of it, specifically this tune, and one of the others that will be in the 6 singles were written actually for the group that we did our first interview for.
Really?
For the not I'm all too familiar with Hopelessness.
Yes.
It was originally written for a quintet with 2 horns.
This song that we've been listening to.
It was originally written for a quintet with 2 horns.
Wow.
Yes. I reduced it down to be able to play it with a trio. Obviously, that doesn't work for all those songs. And the reason why I did that was because I knew that it's easier to tour with a trio, and I really wanted to devote myself, in practice at least, to some sort of more traditional jazz ensemble. I put jazz in quotations because I feel that's what the most Americans know that kind of music as. But the reason why I put it in quotations is because it's a term I'm really moving away from. I like to call my music Black American music, and I'm a white man who plays Black American music.
Because you honor the legacy, like
Yes.
where that music has come from.
Back to the original question, what the song was actually about and how it relates to the artwork is.
And what you shared with.
Yeah. And what I shared with Jamie was I had just told him that the song was written before I got into a relationship, and it was written at that time. To me, I thought it was written about this relationship I was going to get into and my feelings about that relationship. Really, the song was written just about how I love in general, and it's become a common theme in all of, not just my intimate relationships between me and women, but also my intimate relationships between me and other men. Is it's a joke, not sappy at all. Like I'm not sappy at all. I'm like the most sappy cat in the world.
Loving.
I'm very loving. I'm very passionate, which can sometimes maybe be intense. I don't know, but I'm very passionate. I'm very loving. I'm very caring, and I'm definitely an idealistic, hopeless, freaking romantic. And
seeing potential in everyone, like seeing the good side in people who are struggling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seeing the good side in people who are struggling, seeing the good side in even people who maybe aren't struggling, but have difficulty accessing those, sides of themselves that can be really of greater benefit to all of humanity. So the whole idea of not sappy at all is really just, is that my love is totally sappy and totally very real and passionate at all times. So
Not sappy at all is a better title than sappy.
exactly, and it plays to this joke because anyone who knows me is like, that cat is the most sappy cat I've ever met.
I love it. Speaking of love, I love it.
Yeah.
So you shared that with Jamie, and Jamie then listened to take 1 of Not Sappy at All and came up with this, which has lots of primary colors.
Yes.
Some lines going this way, some lines going that way. What is it about this image for you that fits so perfectly with the song?
Well, if you listen to the song, I know it's marketed under the term jazz. It's a fusion. of multiple things. And if you look at the art, you can see that there's multiple colors, highlighting the fact that, if you listen to the music and the way that we break things down dynamically, the way that we bring the drums in and out, the way that we go through some slightly polyrhythmic parts, the way that we go through parts that have hits, the way that we go into parts where it's more broken down and more dense. It's really highlights all the different timbres and all the different places that I take the music in the song. And one thing that really struck me about it was the eye.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
The eye was, very like glaring, almost like that look that you get. I don't know, man. Like sometimes when I'm at the club, and I'm feeling it, and I'm dancing or whatever, you catch eyes with a woman, you get that connection. you get that connection, you get that maybe stare, or that smile, and like I feel that look in that eye is very much a look of,
inviting connection.
Yeah,
it is
a look of passion, and it really spoke to me with that. And obviously the different angles, the different colors represent different timbres and everything, but the different angles represent also to me the kind of angular approach that I take to harmony. I'm very, very, very by discipline, like very much old school jazz musician. I work on standards, I work on taking them through all 12 keys, I work on doing all sorts of exercises on them. I don't necessarily get to perform that music as much in a very straight ahead context. Obviously all the music I release under my own name is not that.
Yes.
But that's what I am by practice. And
yes.
My approach to harmony is very linear, and very, very inside of harmonic structures. I'm always hearing constant relationships between melodic notes and different harmonic patterns, different chords. I'm always hearing the relationship between one note and the chord at all time, and I'm always bouncing back and forth between perfectly outlining the chord and outlining the colorful sounds that also go with the chord, and bringing some sort of humanity to that.
Totally, yeah. So something about your craft is encapsulated in this particular image, beyond just this particular song. Something about the way in which you craft music.
And I mean, one thing that I also feel it really, really showed with the colors and the different angles as well is tapping on the fact that obviously, anyone who's familiar with my music is like, they can tell that it's influenced by a lot of different stuff.
Different genres.
Yes, different genres.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't really think of genres. I don't even think of the word jazz.
Right.
I don't think of any of that stuff. I really don't. I don't even really like genres in the first place. I think they give people a preconceived notion of what they're going to hear. I really wish that just musicians in general, sometime in the future, it would just be that person's music.
Yeah.
This is their music. This is whoever's music, rather than
kind of box things in. It's kind of the opposite of this connection inviting eye.
exactly.
This is what you are. This is what I am. Doesn't invite connection.
And to me, the genres, as I use them and look at them, I look at them as timbres. To me, genre is synonymous with timbre. So when I move musically into different places and explore different areas of a tune, and I've heard a lot of people be like, oh man, I feel like you're going to this rock area, you're going to this hip hop area, you're going to this free jazz avant-garde place, whatever. It's like, to me, that's just moving different timbres. It's moving energy to different places, and that's connecting through a language that I can hopefully, that speaks to the audience and to people in the language that they understand. I do want to just on that note, I just want to mention this. I was talking with a mentor and a close friend of mine yesterday, Solomon Parham. And he told me to do this, give myself a pat on the back because I'm just lucky to be alive and doing this. But he was listening to me talk. He's like, bro, you sound like Nelson Mandela saying that. And like he said there's this Nelson Mandela quote. Speak to a man in a language that he understands, and that'll go to his head. Speak to a man in his own language, and that'll go to his heart. So it's taken me a while to connect how that exactly relates to me and everything. But what I've come to realize is, especially with my approach to viewing genres as timbres rather than these rigid boxes that you have to shove yourself into to appease whoever, is that I'm speaking to multiple audiences.
Absolutely. And to their hearts.
And to their hearts.
Yeah.
At least that's my goal. Even though my stuff is very heady, and in the practice room I am ruthless. I do not leave any room for myself to be happy. Trust me.
Did I hear that right? You don't leave any space for you to be happy?
in the practice room, no.
Right.
No.
But there is a kind of joy to, I think most of these, or maybe all of these songs in this collection, that's an interesting kind of juxtaposition with particularly the Code 7 record that exists at the moment, 7, which relates to the 7 deadly sins. Obviously, some quite dark territory there.
Yeah.
And that's highlighted with your spoken word piece at the beginning of that record.
Yes.
Which we might circle back to some of that in a moment. But I think the bright colors here, sappy. There is a happiness, so it's communicating happiness. So even if so as to get it right, there's not space for you to be happy in the practice room. As you're speaking to the heart, like look, you're sending this eye out, inviting connection to the listener, and that maybe they have a happy heart as they listen.
Yes.
Do you agree that there's a kind of joy in this collection of songs?
There's definitely a joy in all of my music, even the darkest. In the brightest. I mean, oh man, I'm kind of like the yin and yang, man. Like in the brightest of stuff, there's always a little bit of darkness. In the darkest stuff, there's always a little bit of brightness, and there's always joy. I'm really much a practitioner of, of what Bird said, man. And what I mean by I don't leave myself any room to be happy in the practice room is that's what I do in the practice room. That's practice.
Right.
That's a means to an end.
Yeah.
When I step on stage, when I whatever, I throw all that away.
Right.
I'm there to play. I'm there to, don't get me wrong, I take it very seriously.
Yeah.
And the artists that I work with, they better be ready to be dealing, because I do take it seriously and we do go hard. But I'm doing it with joy. I'm doing it with love.
Yeah.
I'm doing this. I'm throwing away all those things at school or the jazz police or whoever want to throw at you, because that stuff really is very limiting to your human expression, and I feel it just drives a wedge between you and your soul.
Interesting. I like how you put that. Yeah.
And when I'm on the stage, that's what's coming out.
Yeah.
Is my soul, my connection to the spirit of this music, my connection to the lineage, my connection to speaking through the music. It's a conscious statement. At that point, I am speaking. I'm having like a discourse with the musicians.
Yeah.
And with the audience.
Communication is happening. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm using music as the language.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very much very, very much lots of joy, and very much just back to what the greats taught. Learn to play the crap out of your instrument, and when you get on stage, forget about all that. Throw it out the window.
I was watching a prior interview that you did with We Write About Music, and at the end of it, you were invited to communicate whatever you felt called to communicate to the person who was about to listen to your music for the first time on the basis of the interview. And something that you said was, if you love music, music will love you back.
Yes.
Which I think weaves nicely into the conversation that we're having now. Because I think we have been, kind of talking a bit about the relationship between love, which related to the whole sappy conversation, relationship between love and music. And at the beginning of that Seven record, I referenced the spoken word piece, and in that you are very open about traumatic experiences that you've had because of traumatic experiences at home, at school, and
on the streets.
I've had no place to be myself. And that phrase, place to be myself, I think is relevant to kind of bring into conversation with the way in which you're describing music and music loving us, the relationship between love and music being a place within which you can be yourself, express yourself. You said it's coming from your soul, and kind of you're doing what you can to invite others into that space too.
Yes.
Including recognizing that, say, in the moment where you shift, well, one way of describing what's happening is you shift from one genre to another, and the person's like ready to be like, oh, now it's become hip hop. You could be like, yes, and can we just be with what's happening, and think, okay, yes, that's a label that could be, and even jazz, that's a label that could be applied. This bit's jazzy. That label could be applied, and it would make some sense. But the business of applying that label can get in the way of like where emotionally and spiritually, like where are we now, and then where are we, and what's the significance if we allow ourselves to go on the journey from here to here, dropping the labels for a moment. What maybe we find a place to be ourselves, and we find places to recognize parts of ourselves that we're not integrating, perhaps otherwise.
Yes. No, exactly. I just had a very rough upbringing. So I really, and very much what I said, at home, at school, and on the streets. I did not get a break. I didn't get a break even sometimes when I went to other family members' houses. There are only like a few safe places for me as a kid. Spent a lot of time getting jumped and beat up by people. I spent a lot of time being ridiculed by a lot of people, and it made it very, very difficult for me to have any sort of sense of self-validation. And I spent, and even when I got involved in music, even though I knew that there was all this stuff that I had to say that was from me, I couldn't really access it for a very, very long time because of that trauma.
Yeah.
And I couldn't access my whole full potential. It really, when I was in school, when I was learning from professors, I was really lucky to have two professors, Russ Johnson and Steve Peplin, throughout my schooling, who were very open, loving guys. And I feel they did their best, but there's a lot of lessons I couldn't even really understand from them because the trauma was just in the way. And, maybe they didn't know at that time or could see that. And maybe they didn't know how to speak in a language that would speak to my heart. And I don't hold that against them in any way, because either way, everything they taught me is the basis of how I interact with music. But all the excess stuff, being compared to Ben Monder or Near Felder, all these guys who are just super elitist, like just on the top of their game as both technicians on the instrument and artists and musicians, and holding myself up to trying to always follow in the steps of John Coltrane and everything else. And even though I feel like I still do that, and that is the steps that I'm going, I didn't know exactly how to do it. I didn't know exactly what completely that meant. In my head, what that meant was going and learning bunches of standards, going and learning all these tunes in all 12 keys and being able to regurgitate every single Charlie Parker, John Coltrane lick I knew in every single place. And that's not what this music's about. And that's not what Black American music is really about. It's not about regurgitating everything else that came before you.
Being able to make something sound like the first person made something sound when they were speaking from their soul and communicating to the heart of someone.
The thing that it's the speaking from the soul. It's the language.
Yeah.
The tunes are there. The tunes are cool, and that's all whatever. But it's the language. It's the language. It's the blues. It's gospel. It's African rhythms.
There are kind of two strands to the story kind of so far where so you have the traumatic experiences at the beginning, in the spoken word piece at the beginning of 7, you say money, resources, these are things I've never had a lot of. Due to my lack of them, I know how to struggle and overcome. I know how to continuously stand and fight in the face of endless torment. So in the mode of being ready to stand and fight, in the fight mode, so which is like a trauma response.
Which is kind of where the few times where in my life the parts that were actually me shined through.
Yeah, because there's this assertiveness
that has to come along with being your true self.
Right.
And it was very hard for me to access that.